theyeshiva.net.
Okay, you see that Daf Mem Hey, on the top it says Shlach, page 89. Daf Mem Hey, Amud Beis, column 2. Bir al Pasuk v'hoya lechem l'tzitzis. It says Daf Mem Hey Amud Beis, column 2 on Mem Hey, page 89. On top it says Parshas Shlach, Likkutei Torah. Biur al Pasuk v'hoya lechem l'tzitzis. As I mentioned a few times, the Baal HaTanya would often say Maamerim, and then either the next Shabbos or another day of the week, he would say a second Maamer, which was a biur, an explanation on the first. In the biur, he would usually elaborate on some of the concepts and also show the evolution of the idea from Nigla to Halacha to Kabbalah, Kisvei Harizal, Zohar. He would reference it a lot, reference it and cross-reference it and examine it. It was, so to speak, going deeper into the skeletons of the concepts and also showing how the idea was developed in his own mind. So the biurim are often more explanatory, but also often more complex than the Maamer itself, the first Maamer. Here there's a Maamer which is about tzitzis, v'hoya lechem l'tzitzis at the end of Shlach, which was said in the year Tovkuf Samach Hey, 1805. Then comes a biur on this pasuk, v'hoya lechem l'tzitzis. The truth is, it's a very complicated Maamer and a complicated biur. Biur is even more complicated. I chose this because I want to learn it now. Particularly, I want to focus on the first parak of this biur, v'hoya lechem l'tzitzis, because of the fundamental idea that is being conveyed here. In the beginning, it uses Kabbalistic language, which the biurim often do because he's referencing the ideas in the Maamer, in the sources in Teres HaNister, especially the writings of the Arizal, the writings of the Zohar, and other writings of Kabbalah. But as you will see quite clearly, he immediately goes into an idea that is extremely fundamental, I would say, in Yiddishkeit, in Hashkafa, in Machshava, in Musar, certainly in the world of Chassidus. So that's why it's biur al Pasuk v'hoya lechem l'tzitzis, and he starts off Inyan Hatcheles to discuss the concept of Tcheles. Tcheles, of course, is one of the mitzvahs. Translation of Tcheles is turquoise wool. The Torah commands that the tzitzis, the four corners, the arba kanfas of the tzitzis, have within each of them v'nosnu, as we say in the morning in Krishma, v'nosnu al tzitzis hakonof psil tcheles v'hoya lechem l'tzitzis, which is basically the opening of the first Maamer. There has to be a strand of tcheles, which was wool, that was dyed with a particular color. The color is somewhere between the shade of blue and purple, similar to indigo, like the indigo plant, which is called kla'ilon, but that's not kosher for tcheles. That's fake tcheles, pseudo tcheles. Real tcheles came, as is well known, from the chilazon, as it's called, the chilazon fish or snail, and the Radziner Rebbe claimed, No. The Radziner Rebbe famously maintained that he discovered it on the shores of Italy in the late 1800s, and from this came the whole contemporary discussion about Tcheles, this side or that side. Tcheles, essentially, the Gemara says, is doima l'rakia, doima l'yam, has the color of what the sea looks like, the ocean looks like, the heavens looks like, that bluish, inspiring color called Tcheles. Here he discusses Tcheles based on the meaning of the word, which is also connected to the color, and its spiritual dimensions. So he says, Dal hine, Dalet gvonen shebeneir, hanisker bepri Eitz Chaim, shar hashabbos, soif perek Dalet b'shem hazoya. The Arizal has a sefer called Ohr Chaim, written by Rabbi YY Bitul. It basically goes through the major calendar of Judaism: Shabbos, Rosh Chodesh, Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkot. It explains each Yom Tov and day according to the Torah's Arizal. Shara Shabbos, he speaks about lighting candles before Shabbos. He speaks about the fact, the name of the Zohar in Bereshis, that when you look at a flame, you can identify at least 4 colors. If you look at a candle burning, a nair burning, you can identify, if you look closely, you can identify 4 colors. This is Negei Halacha. The Mishnah in Brachas, what's the bracha you make by Havdalah? Beis Shammai says, Shebara Ma'oir Ha'esh. Beis Hillel says, Boirei Ma'oirei Ha'esh. Asks the Gemara, what's the argument? Bara Ma'oir Ha'esh, Boirei Ma'oirei Ha'esh. Beis Hillel says, Kama Kvani Ike Benura. A fire is not made up of one color. It's made up of various diverse colors. When you look at a flame, you could see different colors. Even though it looks from the outside, it just looks like a fire, but really there's many colors. So you don't say bara ma'oir ha'esh, but boirei ma'oirei ha'esh, the various lights of fire, different lights, different flames. Generally, it's four colors. Nahira chivra, chuli, or nahira tichla, chuli. Basically, you have the darker colors and the lighter colors. All the way on the bottom, if you'll take a look, the flame is going to appear black. If you go higher, a little higher, it's going to appear blue. If you go get higher, you'll have red, orange, yellow. And then there's the higher, it's called Nahira Chivra, the white light, the white color. Okay. The higher you go, it turns from dark, black, into white. Nahira Chivra means white fire. Chivra is white. Nahira Tichla means dark fire. What's the explanation? He says, Nahira Tichla, this is what Tcheles is. Tcheles is bluishness. So you have on the bottom it's black, and then it becomes bluish. And then higher you have lighter colors, and then you have white. So he says, Nahira Tichla hu atachten hanechas b'psil. You'll also see there's a difference between the color of the flame that's holding onto the wick, consuming the wick, and the flame that's above the wick. The flame that's on the wick, its nechas b'psil, is always darker. Why? So he explains Parshas in chemistry. Lefi shemikilyoin hapsila hu davar she'enoi minoi kala v'nivar boy nishtana ha'or legavan tcheles. The oil that is consuming the wick. So what is creating that flame? The wick. The wick is davar she'enoi minoi. It's not the min. It's not the species, so to speak, of the flame. It's what we call in Halacha min b'sheinei minoi. So therefore, it changes the oil. It contributes its own flavor, its own color, its own dimension to the flame, and that's what the color comes from. It's because of the contact, the direct contact with the wick. On the contrary, in contrast to that, the flame above the wick, this is the pristine nature of the fire itself, and hence it's Nahira Chivra. It's the light color, the white color. So the blackishness or the bluishness is the confrontation. It's the result of the encounter between the fire and the flammable wick, and the struggle of the flame to eat up the wick, so to speak, to consume the wick. Hashem Elokecha Eish Oichlahu. Oichla is connected to the word Cheles, as we will see. Right? Tichla. L'chol Tichla Re'isi Kates. Tichla Shana V'Kilalei. So what does Tichla mean? Vayechulu Hashamayim. To finish something off, to eat something up, to consume something, to destroy something. That's the connection. You're destroying the wick, and in that destruction you get the wick, you get the flavor, and therefore the color becomes black or becomes blue. And then you have the pristine flame above the wick, that's already the white flame, the Hirachiv. V'kach, spiritually, he's now going to use some, again, fancy words, but don't get scared. Malchus da Atzilus, the characteristic known in Nister as Malchus of the world of Atzilus, which, just as reference, Every world is made up of 10 building blocks. The soul is made up of 10 building blocks. Chachma, Bina, Das, 3 cognitive faculties. Emotional faculties, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes. Functional faculties, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, Malchus. They're known as 10 koiches, 10 spheros, 10 lights, 10 numbers, 10 characteristics. And these are the building, this is the key to understand, building blocks of the universe. The spiritual chemistry of the universe, if you would study chemistry from a spiritual textbook, right? If you're studying chemistry in your high school textbooks, as you did in Papa or in Satmar or in Vishnitz or wherever you did it, or in Samarkand, or in MIT, okay, over there at least. So then, or in Harvard. So then you would, if you're studying water molecules, so they're going to explain to you, a water molecule, they're going to explain to you is what? Is 2 atoms of hydrogen and 1 atom of oxygen, and they come together and they create a water molecule. So you broke up the water and you explained what had to come together to make it up. What if you're learning spiritual chemistry? You're going to learn the same thing, but you're going to understand the energy of the hydrogen atom, or the energy, spiritual energy in the oxygen atom. And the same is true in every other physical matter. So then you'll identify it as a sphera. So whenever you see the word, this sphera, that sphera, don't see it as people sometimes shut down because it's like, oh, here he goes again. It's like, when are we going to get to Shalom Bayis? But, or whatever this situation is, when are we going to get to my psychological issues? But the truth is that without this language, you don't really learn anything, because without this language, you're just listening. You're not developing a skill. So I'm explaining to you the language. The language is, spiritual chemistry uses the word spheres. And the world is made up of 10 building blocks. These are the major spiritual atoms that make up our universe. There are physical atoms, and they're barely physical. I mean, they're barely visible and physical. But relative to spirituality, atoms are physical. Of course, you know, the greatest part of the atom is empty space, and that's where the spiritual energy rests. In the empty space, that's where what we call Dvar Hashem, the DNA of God, rests. And that's the core and the makeup of the physical. They're not 2 separate worlds. Just like, and this is also very important, today we understand this, because when he wrote all these things, it was language and it was very abstract. Today we already have oasis for it. When you look at a table, you could see the table from an external perspective. When you break down the table, you see a whole different table. It's the same table, but it's really a very different reality. And the same is true with your pinky, the same is true with a cup, and the same is true with a mic and a wallet. We see it from an external perspective, and it looks like a solid piece of wood, and it's a table. And I even bang my hand on it, I pound my hand on it, and it says, relax, I'm also here. It gives feedback. But when you use the microscope, you'll see that there's a whole dynamic universe of atoms moving in a tremendous swiftness that make up the core of every physical item. So, which is true? Depends what glasses you're wearing. My glasses right now allow me only to see a solid piece of wood. If I would be able to put on more sensitive glasses, so to speak, what we call a microscope, I could see deeper layers of existence. What if I could put on the glasses of Likkutei Torah? I look at the same atoms. It's not a different world. But I suddenly see it, and I see a different reality. Not a different reality, a deeper reality, which gives rise to yet a more superficial reality, which gives rise yet to a more superficial reality. And it's all based on paradigms. It's all based on perspectives. So when you speak about spheres, you're really talking about the language of Teres HaNister when you want to talk about the chemistry of the universe, the spiritual chemistry of the universe. This is clear. This is important to understand. Generally, it's 10. 10 major characteristics that make up the universe. Of course, these 10 could be subdivided into many, many nuances and details, because each one has many aspects, and when they start integrating with each other, which one becomes more emphasized, just like in the world of atoms. And therefore you have so many different combinations, endless combinations of spheres, to the point that you have a whole diverse universe. And that's the physical world. Then you have the spiritual universes are also made up of the 10 characteristics. Nasa Adam b'tzalmeinu kidmuseinu. We're created in Hashem's image. We're also made up of these 10 spiritual faculties. Each soul has the capacity and the fuse, which we'll call chesed or gvura, tiferes, and netzach yisod.
So each 10 has all 10 within.
Yes, like we do in Spheres Maamer. There's chesed shebechesed and gvura shebechesed and tiferes shebechesed.
Why do we only use 7 spheres?
We don't. 7 are the midos. The 3 that are cognitive, they're called chachma bina das.
That's also in every universe?
Everywhere. Those, it's really 10, it's not 7. Spheres Maamer, we focus on emotion, so we focus on 7. 7 times 7 is 49. But the world of spheres is known as Essa spheres.
What is the other 3?
Chachma, Bina, Das.
Buddhism, they usually only work on the 7.
Huh?
The Buddhism, they only work on the 7 usually.
Yeah. 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 So he says that. The Kach, Malchus, Datzilis. So every world you'll always speak about 10. No difference. You'll speak about Olam Atzilis. There will be Chachma of Atzilis, Malchus of Atzilis. You'll speak about Olam HaBriya. There'll be Gvura de Bria, Malchus de Bria. You'll speak about Olam HaYitzira. That language will not disappear, because that's the system. The language of atoms, you don't get away from that language, not because you want to say the same thing, because that's the structure in which the universe operates. You can't get out of that structure. You can go deeper into the structure, but that's the structure. So therefore, in every world, you're going to have all these names. So when he says Malchus Datzilis, instead of shutting down intellectually and emotionally, right, and start looking on your phone, instead understand that basically you're dealing with a concept that will continue to persist, because in every world you have all these 10. And because you have all these 10, so you'll always have this language, Malchus Ditzira, Malchus Datsiya, Malchus Datzilis, etc. That's just a tutorial in all these types of words. V'kach, it's clear, yeah? It's clear what I said. V'kach Malchus Datzilis nikra nohira tichla. When you want to describe Malchus of Atzilis, it's called blue fire or dark fire. Why? Shenasis kilyon libri yitzir asiya sheptelem elev v'nichlalim ba. You know why? Because Malchus of Atzilis is the black fire or the blue fire that consumes the wick. Which wick? The wick here is called Bria Yitzir Asiya. They are nullified to the fire and they're submerged in the fire. Just like a wick becomes nullified and it becomes fuel of the fire. It fuels the fire. It's now part of the fire. At the end, there's nothing left of the wick. You have some ashes left, some residue left. Whatever that cannot be consumed in the flame. Everything else of the wick is gone. Or the log, or whatever it is that the fire is consuming.
This is the lowest level.
This is the lowest level of the flame that is encountering, it's burning something up. Vihine. Ad Malchus Datzilis, until you reach the point of Malchus of Atzilis, who is Talshalusa Eses Spheres Me'ila Le'ila B'Bchinas Achtos. The 10 spheres evolve one to the other. Ila Le'ila, Ila means antecedent to another antecedent. Chachma to Bina to Chesed to Gvura to Feres Netzach, but they're all unified. Mashenkim Bria Yitzir Asiya Him Bchina Acheres. Bria Yitzir Asiya now is a different dimension. It's a different world. The Davar Nifrit. It conceives itself as separate. Malachim, you have angels here. You have neshamas. You have souls. They're spiritual beings, but they're beings. And therefore, what they experience is Bitul Hayesh. There is a yesh, a sense of somethingness that experiences God. Where in Atzilis, there's only Achdos, there's complete unity. So therefore, all the spheres till Malchus, the consciousness is one of complete Achdos. Once you hit Bria, there's still consciousness of God. We're not dealing here with our world yet. That's going to be the lowest levels of Asiya. But there is already something called Davar Nifrid. It's called Bria, a creation outside of it. It experiences itself as separate. You'll have an angel, you'll have a soul. These are spiritual beings, but they're beings. They're beings, they're not Ein Sof. And therefore what we call them is Bitul. They experience Bitul, but it's Bitul Hayesh. The Liyos came thus in the B'chines Hatzilas. Atzilus itself, Til Malchus, who commercial Isha Chivra Niskalel. That's the white fire. That's the fire above the wick. It's not encountering the wick. Shehumara ha'esh be'etzem. The white fire is what fire really looks like. Sheloi bami davar she'enoi minoi mamish v'davar zar kamay kilyan apsila. Because this fire is not the fire that is produced by the encounter with something that is not its own min, it's not its species, and it's something strange, like when it's consuming the wick. Elisho bitul be'etzem. This is not called bitul hayesh, it's called bitul be'etzem. Bitul be'etzem means it's essentially nullified. Bitul hayesh means there's a yesh, there's a wick, and I'm fighting the wick. I overwhelm the wick. The fire wins. The wick surrenders. But there's a wick surrendering to the fire. And therefore the fire is also changed. The fire is blackish. The fire is darkish. It assumes the quality of the resistance. It defines the fire. The fire above represents after I consume the wick. Then there's what the fire itself is like. As a result of the consumption of the wick, without a wick you're not going to have any flame. But it allows the fire to rise above the wick, and there you have a much more refined look. It doesn't have the gross appearance, the more brute, dark appearance that comes from the encounter with the opposite, with the einoi minoi, the min b'she'einoi minoi, that creates a new type of compound, a new type of flame. Spiritually speaking, till malchus of Atzilus, which means all the spiritual makeup of Atzilus till the lowest level of Malchus all represent the white fire. Malchus of Atzilus is the fire already on top of the wick, because that comes in contact with Briya, Yitzir, Asiya, and challenges them and inspires them and puts them on fire. This is already the dark fire. Verstandig? Okay. Elishahu Bitul Be'etzem. This is called Bitul, different Bitul Ayesh and Bitul Be'etzem. The Pchin is Chachmei Law Hamispashet B'derech Hishtalshlus B'chol Atzilus. This is the Bitul of Chachmei Law. Chachmei Law is another word for Chachma of the world of Atzilus. The higher level of Chachma. This is Chachma of the world of Atzilus. It extends throughout the whole Atzilus till Malchus. That's the white fire. Masha'enkein Pchinas HaMalchus. When you come Malchus, that's black fire or blue fire. Nahira Tichla. There's levels also. There's blue, there's dark blue. You look at a fire, you'll see it all in the fire. There's just like white, there's yellow, right? Malchus already becomes the mother that contains, from the word klal, all the separate worlds. This is min b'she'enoi minoi. This is the wick and the flame. It's einoi minoi. It's not its species. Because Atzilus is a world which is all divine. Ri Yitzir Asiya is a world where there's consciousness. There's Bitul, but there's Bitul Hayesh. So therefore there's a sense of Yesh, separateness. So if the wick is on its own, it's just separate. If the wick burns, in other words, it does get submerged in the fire. Zeu Inyan Hatcheles. That's the blue fire. Shabam mikilyoin apsila. That's why it's called cheles. It's mechala. It's mechala. It eats up. It consumes the wick. That's called nahira tichla. So the word cheles is also associated with the color of the flame when it is consuming the wick.
Tichla means dark in this lashon.
In Aramaic, it means dark, black. It's associated with the Hebrew word mechala. And the connection is because that's the flame that consumes the wick. The flame above the wick will never be dark. It's always going to be white. What he calls mara ha'esh be'etzem. In other words, Bitul has two colors. There's the color of Bitul when it's consuming something, and there's the color of Bitul which he calls Bitul be'etzem, essential Bitul. When Bitul is a struggle, when you're struggling with something and you have to consume it, your Bitul is not pure because you're fighting, even though you're prevailing, but you're busy transforming something. And whenever you're transforming something else, you're defined by the transformation as much as the thing that is being transformed. Whenever you're changing something, you are defined by that as much as it is defined by you. It never could work any other way. And this is both positive and negative. And an expression of the Tanya, ha-mis'abik imenuvel, misnavel kemoisai. If somebody wrestles a menuvel, a filthy, filthy person, you get dirty, spiritually, psychologically as well. when you wrestle with somebody who is,
Wrestling, that's it, all right?
when you wrestle with somebody who is, who is lowly, it affects you even though you're wrestling and even though you may win. You can't wrestle without getting close. In fact, Was? Yeah. The broom gets dirty.
Yeah, but if you analyze that analogy, here it's not the alamas, the bria CRC that's getting black, it's the flame that's getting
Exactly. The flame is getting black because that's the nature, that's the function of the flame. The flame is coming in contact with the psila, which is einoi minoi, and that contact changes both of them. The wick is consumed and the flame is darkened. Because what makes the flame is the wick. The wick makes the flame. So that makes this color, this darkish color. It's the friction that creates this color. And then you have what he calls mara ha'esh be'etzem, the pristine flame, not busy resisting and transforming. That's Nahira Chivra. In spiritual terms, that's not Malchus of Atzilus, it's all the spheres above it, from Chachma through Yesod till Malchus. That's Nahira Chivra, that's the white fire, which is not encountering the blackishness. And this is called Bitul be'etzem versus Bitul hayesh. So the Bitul has two colors. It has a black color, or a blue color, which is a darker color, I should say blue really, and a white color.
We could say that when they're fighting, so to speak, that's when it's black, and then when there's success, then it's white.
When,
I was thinking of a teenager in the morning trying to get out of bed. So there's that fight. No, the pillow. Is,
you mean 40-year-olds don't have a fight getting out of bed?
I'm just saying, 60-year-olds.
Okay.
But I'm just saying, but that's the black, and then when he's out, he's doing. He said, "Modanit, the nekvas." Now it's.
No, I said
he
Modan
goes
in
Above,
bed.
when you're above it, yeah.
The blue color is also
I said Modan in bed.
flying with the wind.
Yeah, you'll see the black and the blue is always lower. You could take a look. You light a candle and take a look at the Shabbos candles this week.
Not above it.
Right. It's above the wick is always whitish. Yes. It's the psila that makes that's the nature of this bittul. Shekoyach Reb Moshe. Light a candle already.
No black.
Blue.
Yeah.
Gas is also like a wick.
There's no wick on that. It's wickless.
It's harder to see.
Burning something up. Whatever it burns up.
It always burns something up. The question is how subtle. How subtle.
Right.
We could light the tissue on fire.
What?
We could light the tissue and see what happens.
We could put the building on fire.
See which part turns blue.
I don't mean to give you ideas about school, but
Oh. Yeah, school's over.
It has a candle over there.
yeah. Oh, okay.
You should see it's black. It's black in there.
Oh, you're talking about the kitchen students.
Yeah, the first part is black.
Right,
Yes.
but it's burnt.
Not black, but dark.
If you have a big candle, it'll be a little easier to see. But you'll see. You see? You see where it's blue? On bottom or on top? Always on the bottom. The blue is always on the bottom, you see? Because that's in contact with the wick. The higher you go, you see how the color changes? That's called Nahira Tichla, and the top is called Nahira Chivra. Dark and white. He says there's 4 colors because within the darkness there's a few colors, and within the whiteness there's a few colors. Leave it shine.
There's the marshmallow.
I thought hot dogs. I thought
I was thinking steak.
this hour hot dogs is better than marshmallows.
You can't eat
I think
steak.
it goes straight to dessert.
If you look at the gas stove,
Yes,
there's no wick there.
right.
More refined.
Yes.
Yeah, but you still see the blue.
More
Still black.
You still see the blue. At the beginning.
Still
that
dark.
blue color, is that the Tchelis color that's under gas
Yeah.
stove?
Yeah, that's the idea of Tchelis, yeah.
But don't put that kind on your
That's the idea of Tchelis, yeah. In Tzitzis, of course, we have what's called in Halacha Likkutei Torah and Likkutei Lavan. Likkutei Torah is blue, strands of blue. Likkutei Lavan is strands of white. That's the connection to V'hoy Lechem L'Tzitzis. Now, V'ayin Mashakasuv Mizeh Bebir Al Pasuk Yataneri B'Soif HaDibur. You could take a look in the Maamer and Chanukah Maamer in Torah Ohr Chaim. She'Nahira Tichla Nimshach Mekilyan HaPsila Kanal. Nahira Tichla primarily comes from consuming the wick, as mentioned. When Nahira Chivra Nimshach Mehashemen. When you have oil, you will see predominantly the white dimension of a fire. Shemimenu nimshach oir tzach. Generally, oil produces a much more clear, tzach is a much more clear, translucent light. V'hainu ki hashemen loy nikra davar she'enoi minoi. Shemen is not called enoi minoi ki shemen ubchinas chachmei lo shubchinas haTorah. Shemen is such a refined substance that when it burns up, when it fuels the flame, it's not called enoi minoi, and the flame has to overcome it. When min b'she'enoi minoi fight, the min and she'enoi minoi are opposites, so there is resistance. And that's the sore reason, he explains there in that Maamer, for the different noises that you hear when you're burning something up. You make a bonfire, you put in a log, you hear the crackling of the log. You put in twigs, you'll hear the sizzle. You light your Chanukah menorah, you hear nothing. Why? The noise is a reflection of the resistance. Right? I punch the ear, and there's no sound. I go like this, and as I said before, the table says, I also have an ego. Relax, okay? And if you punch me harder, I'm going to hurt you. I'm going to resist even more. It's a friction. You may win. You may break it. But the friction, it doesn't surrender easily, because it's einai minai. And if it's einai minai, means I don't belong in you. I am I. You want to take over my ego, okay, but I'm not going to go down so easy. The log doesn't go down so easy. The noise represents the hispilus. Spiritually, he says, it's the emotional friction of like, this is crazy, this is novel. All new noise comes from unexpected, from novelty, from drama. You see a best friend in the airport, you haven't seen them in 2.5 years, right? All the kids would go away to yeshiva for 4 or 5 years. Yeah, they came home, you see them from far, and you're screaming. Why are you screaming? The surprise. Huh?
You're screaming because they're back and they're coming back home?
That depends on the relationship. But till they come back home, you're still excited, right? The first few minutes, you're still excited.
They want your bike back.
Huh?
They want his bike back.
So it's the excitement that creates the noise. You don't take it for granted because it's new. For the log, the more einai minoi, the more the enthusiasm, the more the excitement, whether it's negative or positive, but there's excitement. What about the shemen? The shemen yields easily, smoothly, spiritually, because shemen is b'china of Bitul. Shemen is connected to Chachma, it's connected to Torah. The Gemara in Menachos, the people of Takoya were wise because shemen zayis matzui behen. Shemen is connected to Chachma. Shemen is considered Kabbalistically a very refined substance. Very, very refined. Huh? That was Shemen HaMishcher, anointed kings, anointed Koyanim Gedolim, anointed the Mishkan, anointed the Kalim. It's a special qualities, Shemen. Huh? No. You need the wick. You need the wick. But the Shemen surrenders. So he says Shemen is an Ertzach. It's not so much Einai Minai. It's not mamish. You can't call it a fire. It's not, but it's einai minai. Huh?
Oil can burn by itself.
You need something inside.
It's heated up to 11.
Such a chemist, I'm not. It's just,
You need something. You need something.
They had a lot of time in yeshiva to test it.
you did it in yeshiva. Okay.
Harvard.
So this is the Nahira Tichla versus the Nahira Chivra. Two pchinas of Bitul. Bitul Hayesh and Bitul Be'etzem. One there is the Min B'She'enai Minai, and one is Min B'Minai. Now here we see the fascinating parallels between the world of Halacha, the world, you know what I'm going to say? The world of Halacha and the world of Nister. When it comes to halacha, the sugya of min b'mina, min b'she'ena mina, in Yeridea, and Chulin, and other places, is very interesting. When you have mixtures of things that are the same min, or min b'she'ena mina, things that are not the same min. Huh? Bitul, yeah. The shitta, the view of Rabbi Yehuda is, in Gemara and in Shas says, Rabbi Yehuda holds min b'minai ain't a bottle. Min b'minai will not become bottle. If you take two things, if you take a chicken soup and another chicken soup, and you mix them, one is treif for chicken, one was a chicken that died, and one is a chicken that was shechted. So one chicken soup is treif, one chicken soup is kosher. Even if the kosher chicken soup is a huge pot, and you put a little treif for chicken soup, and there's 60 and 1,000 and 10,000, min b'minoi, Rabbi Yehuda holds einay bottle. Chachamim disagree, but that's the shit of Rabbi Yehuda. What's his raya? V'lokach midam hapar u'midam hasoyer. Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol takes the blood of the bull, the blood of the goat, he mixes them and he sprinkles. Which blood is more? The blood of a bull, the blood of a goat? Blood of a bull. So should it be bottle? The Torah calls it dam hasoyer. But it's not blood of a goat anymore. It's nullified in the blood of the bull. Min b'minay ain't a bottle. It's min b'minay. Rabbi Yehuda brings an ayah from here. Chachamim say you can't bring an ayah from there because it's karbonis. Whenever you're dealing with something holy, it has its chshivus, its identity doesn't get bottled easy. Okay, this is a huge machlokes in halacha. So the Ran in Masechta Nedarim explains what's the svara min b'minay ain't a bottle. And he says a brilliant svara. I'm going to explain it a little bit in my own words, but this is what the Ran says basically. He says Bitul is always about a sense of what we would call today assimilation. Meaning, if I'm a refugee, I come from a different country, and I come into a new community where everybody is different, how long can I resist? How long? A day, a week, a month. At the end, you want to fit in. People want to fit in. The overwhelming majority takes people over. This happens to every normal human being. A kid comes from another school, he comes into a class, there's 40 kids in the class, they have a certain style. How long can you resist? Unless you're an akshan shabakshanim and you're ready to be made fun of for 5 years. We surrender, we shed our layers, we melt away. This is the concept of Bitul psychologically, but it's the concept of Bitul chemically. It's the concept of Bitul in chemistry. You take a drop of milk, you put it into a cholent. The cholent is huge. The milk doesn't have an ego anymore. Sorry, too much cholent. The shuir is shishim, 60 to 1, it's too much. You surrender. If it's not 60 to 1, if it's 1 to 40, you don't surrender. But 1 to 60, you surrender. That's the klal of Bitul b'shish. Says the Ran, b'medvarim amurim, if it's min b'sheinai minai. What if it's min b'minai? So he says, not only do you not get bottle, his lashon is hamin hasheni mechaskoi ki yumin b'minai. What happens if I come from another community and I come into this community, but the people here are the same like me? Fakert, I get invigorated, I get emboldened. The second min doesn't compete with me. He makes a kabbalah spanim. Finally, you're just like me. So he says halachically min b'minai ain't a bottle. That's the svara of Rabbi Yehuda. That's the svara. And what this Diran explains brilliantly why in halacha davar sheyesh le matirin there's no bittul. Something that's going to be mutter tomorrow can't get bottle. For example, you have an egg, yeah? An egg that's born on Yom Tif is muktzah, because it was born on Yom Tif, right? What if it gets mixed into 1,000 eggs that were laid before Yom Tif? It should be bittul, yeah? Because we hold min b'mina is bottle. It's not, you know why? Because davar shesh lematirin. Wait till after Yom Tif, it's going to be mutter, because the only problem was muktzah, noilet. After Yom Tif, the halacha is davar shesh lematirin is not bottle. Asks the Ran why. So he says Pashat. Chazal Chacham agree with Rabbi Yehuda. Min b'minoi can't be bottle. Why can't it be bottle? Because if I'm like you, I'm not going to get intimidated by you. I'll be emboldened by you. Right? The reason they argue with Rabbi Yehuda is because it's min b'minoi physically. But spiritually, this is mutter and this is asr. They're the greatest enemies. What makes it a min b'sheinai minoi is that they're enemies in terms of morality. This is kosher, this is treif. This is kosher chicken soup, this is non-kosher chicken soup. So they're not the same, so they get into a fight. So therefore, whenever there's a fight, you could get overwhelmed. Because one is treif and one is kosher. That makes the min b'sheinai minoi. Physically it's the same, but spiritually it's not the same. But if it's over shesh le'matirin, so even spiritually we're not enemies, because tomorrow I'm going to be mutter. Everybody holds ain't a bottle. In other words, Chachamim in principle agree with Rabbi Yehuda. They just say that min b'sheinai is also min b'sheinai minoi because one is mutter, one is asr. You with me? This whole Yesod is being conveyed here on a spiritual level. There is the min b'minoi and there's min b'sheinei minoi. One is Bitul hayesh and one is Bitul be'etzem. And it's two completely different experiences. What is the difference of the experience? Sometimes you're not consuming a wick at all. There's no consumption, there's no Bitul, there's no mixture. This is separate and this is separate. Here we're talking about there's a mixture. And one gets nullified. But there's two types of nullification. One is the yesh gets nullified, and one is Bitul be'etzem. And I'll explain to you the difference. I'll give a dugma for the difference. One is a bittul where there is a wick or a log, and therefore there's resistance. And even though you surrender, so it's a very powerful moment, but the bittul can't be a pure bittul because it's born out of resistance. So it colors the bittul. There's bittul be'etzem that's free from resistance. It's just what fire looks like essentially. So here the dance of the flame is a white dance. It's not a blue dance. It's nahira chivra. It's not nahira tichla. To give an example of the two, a psashtikal example. Anybody wants to give an example?
Bitul hayesh.
Both, the contrast.
Well, Bitul hayesh, the leaving part would be the example of so to speak, I use the word poorly, a bad kid in the classroom with a good kid in the classroom. So with the good kids in the classroom. So the bad kid may surrender ultimately, but they'll still leave a mark, so to speak.
Yeah. Let's say, I'll talk in a person's personal life. If a person is struggling with something and they're resisting to change, they're just resisting. There's people for years resist to change. I always tell myself I'm not going to talk about shalom bayis, but somehow it comes up. I don't know why, but I'll ask my therapist to psychoanalyze me. Maybe I know that's what wakes people up. Maybe it wakes me up. Whatever it is. There's people who resist change. Why? Out of habit. It's just the way it is. As they'll always say, I'm not going to change. My wife is not going to change. Just the way it is. We've been fighting about the same thing for 29 and a half years. It'll be like that till the Chevra Kadisha come. And that's it. It's a resistance. And it's a state of complete detachment from observing reality, from transforming reality, from going deeper into reality. I just want to stay in my comfort zone and be what I want to be and be miserable in that comfort zone, which I call a comfort zone. It's really a place of misery, but that's what it is. But sometimes the truth stares you in your face so much, you have no choice. The fire is too big. The wick got to surrender. But you're fighting tooth and nail. The log fights and the wick fight. They don't go down easily. Therefore they make noise and they produce blackness in the fire. So even when I'm misbattle, when I'm nullified, the bittul takes on the color of the fight. It takes on the color of the struggle. What do I mean it takes on the color of the struggle? It doesn't have a sense of purity to it because it's busy battling. There's the battle in it. Now there's a certain beauty to that. The beauty to that is that the yesh went down. When a log is on fire, it's something very powerful because the log is on fire. Mitzad the chiddush, the min b'she'enoi minoi, is a very powerful bittul. There's a real bittul here because it's enoi minoi. What if it's min b'minoi? If it's min b'minoi, then when I'm mixing with you, you're not mavatal me really. Why? Because we're essentially connected. We're essentially one. So it's not bittul. That's what I was explaining, why min b'mina eine bitul. The two are not opposites. The two are really the same. So when I surrender in you, I'm really surrendering in myself also. There's no real abnegation here that I'm nisbatel for you, but rather there's complete oneness, there's complete achdus. That's why he says, till Malchus Datzilis, it's white fire. In Malchus Datzilis, it's black fire. Because Malchus Datzilis is already consuming Bri, Yitzir, Asiyah with his Ayesh. But in Atzilis itself, there's complete achdus. So it's all min b'minoi. It's like the oil. So therefore, there's no opposition. Since there's no opposition, it's a different type of Bitul. The Bitul has in it a certain dance, a purity, a transcendence. To give an example of this, if somebody loves music, I once read, somebody once came to my house, an avid reader of Reader's Digest. They've been reading Reader's Digest from like 1952, and they like knew every issue. Yeah, it was a relative of mine. So she was once in my house. So she told me that she was a kid. I never found the story after written, but just what she told me. She read in the Reader's Digest an article by a doctor. It was the 1930s. He delivered a baby. And the baby came out. It was a little girl. And she was missing a hand. And there was some other deformities in her body. The mother had to go through it was a complicated birth, so she was sedated or under anesthesia. She wasn't fully conscious. There was nobody in the room. And the doctor writes in the Reader's Digest that he decided that he wants to do this mother a favor. This mother's going to have a miserable life with this baby because all the problems. He'll snuff out the life of the baby, give it a needle, he'll kill it. He's thinking to himself, and he'll tell the mother, baby didn't survive. They'll grieve, but they'll have other kids, they'll live a normal life. Here it's going to be endless misery. This is what he's writing, and he's debating back in the early 1930s, so these calculations, I guess, were, normal, or sometimes maybe a little more prevalent, whatever. Now, he's going back and forth, and he's struggling. Nobody was there. And this dilemma is tearing him apart, and at the end he says, you know what? I don't have to play God's role, and I like this mother, I like the father, but I'm not mixing it. He leaves the baby alive. The doctor says that he's been always in love with the cello instrument. He's walking one day in Manhattan, 20, 30 years later, he's walking one day in Manhattan, by a house, and he hears the sound of music, and he right away knows it's a cello. And he goes in, and there's it's a huge house, and there's like a little concert, 200 people, 300 people. And he gets a ticket, and he sits down. And there's the person playing the cello, a woman playing the cello. And he sees how she's struggling. It's very, very complicated for her. And the way she's holding it, she has one hand, and it's brilliant how she's manipulating it. He said he never heard somebody play the cello this way. And he said, I sat there for 2 hours, and I melted. And then I asked somebody at the end, who is this playing the cello? And he said the name, and that was the girl that I wanted to kill. That was the end of the story. His point is, very many of us destroy things that if we would only let them live, they will change our lives. Sometimes it's with your own children. You destroy the soul of children because they create so much aggravation for you. And if you would let them live, they will ultimately become your greatest sources of pleasure. Sometimes educators kill children. If they would only let them live, they will become their greatest sources of pride. Quite a profound observation. This I heard from her many years ago, a relative who says she read it in the Reader's Digest. I never saw it afterwards. This is what I heard. Yeah. When he was sitting in that place, giving a little metaphor, I know it's not Maamer, the same idea, but I think it's close. When you're sitting there and you melted for 2 hours. Doesn't happen often, doesn't happen to everybody, but once in a while it happens. That's also a form of Bitul. But that's not Bitul Hayesh. That's a mashal. There was no resistance in the Bitul. the person just melted. The ego surrendered, and that surrender was not done with a sense of, I don't want to, but I have to. I don't want to, but I will. I don't want to, but this is the truth. No, my whole eye melts. That's a little bit of a mushal for Bitul Be'etzem. In other words, the whole etzem is bottle. Bitul Hayesh means there's min b'she'enai minai. Who wins? Whoever is bigger, whoever is stronger. Fire is stronger. Fire wins. God is truth. Truth wins. Truth wins over lies. But the lie doesn't go down easy. Lies don't go down easy. They say Napoleon in one of his wars, one of his generals came and said, General Napoleon, the enemy is right here. The enemy is advancing right here. Napoleon says, you know what your problem is? Your problem is your maps are too small. You may get bigger maps and the enemy won't be so close. That's your whole problem. Okay.
You wanted an analogy for the concept of the Bitul Hayesh, so to speak, staining and leaving its mark. Music actually is a very good analogy. You have a big symphony orchestra playing a beautiful thing. One instrument plays something off-key in order to... He's overwhelmed. The overwhelming sound is beautiful, but that Bitul still leaves a sensitive ear will still hear a little bit of dissonance no matter how much he's misbatel. On the other hand, if that one instrument plays a sound which is harmonious, which is actually mechazik, which is I'm one of you, I'm mechazik you, that'll be that'll be like Bitul Be'etzem in the sense of a very refined kind of Bitul.
Right. I was once in a choir when I was a little kid, and there was this big choir. We were singing with Joe Amar and Mordechai Ben David and all these chevra. And it was always an opportunity to leave yeshiva early. That was the mile of going into the choir. You had your off days. And so we had this choir. It was fahak the choir. But shine, people were then into choirs. So I remember we were singing a song. And there was a boy near me. And he went off beat completely. And he had a loud voice. And the director of the choir, he's tanzta hakta machta. So you couldn't scream at him. He wanted to kill him. He wanted to kill this kid. And he's like, he's making this face. But this kid stubbornly was just off beat, right? Now you're right. If the choir would have been, so many other voices, he would have had a lower voice. He would have been this battle, but he would leave his mark. It's even deeper than that, and that is Bitul Hayesh has a positive quality. The Bitul has a certain courage to it because it conquered an enemy. It vanquished an enemy, and I don't mean to be gory or use war language, but the corpse of the enemy, the corpses of the enemy, create a certain smell for the generals of the other side. Again, I don't mean to be, I don't mean to sound like, I know this language is not popular today, but if you know about war literature, yes, the corpse of the enemy creates the flavor because it was a difficult enemy. Lahavdil, that's Bitul Hayesh. The fire is dark. Bitul Be'etzem is a different type of Bitul. This is the fire Be'etzem. It's not encountering the opposite. So this is the type of Bitul of the divine within the divine. This is above Malchus Datzilis. In a person it would be when you surrender to something and you completely become consumed in it because it's like almost that's your own depth. That's your own deepest reality. In Ruchnius, what it means is there's the Bitul of Elikus in Elikus, and there's the Bitul of the Yesh Legabe Elikus. The Bitul of the Yesh Legabe Elikus is Bitul Hayesh. That's black fire. In Atzilus itself, it's also Bitul. There's also oneness. There's no ego. But over there, it's not the ego surrendering. There's Lechatchila no Yesh. There's Lechatchila no separation. You don't feel a separation. You feel a complete oneness. It's a whole different type of Bitul. There's a Bitul where there's a separation and I'm nullified. It's almost like I'm forced to be nullified, even though it's not really forced. But the point is, it overwhelms me. And then there is also no ego, but there's lechatchila no separateness. It's almost like you felt this was always your home. This was always your place. It's the most comfortable experience because this is l'chatchila you. There's no separation, there's no fragmentation. It's a whole different type of Bitul experience.
If you take this analogy, you take it carry all the way along, then really it should mean that since there's the struggle with Bitul Yesh with what's sleeping is blackness on is on the fire.
Yes.
So that would be then the Rabboni Shalom.
So to speak.
I don't know if that means Helen, whatever that means.
No, it means that the spirituality, the divinity of the experience is blackened. Yes.
But the Eshma, it's the divinity.
Yes. The spiritual revelation is blackened. That's exactly the point. 7 lines from the top, page 90, column 1. Make sure it says on the top of the page, Parshas Shlach, Likkutei Torah, or if you want the Hebrew, it's Daf Mem Hey Amud Gimel, Mem Hey column 3, or page 90. You see the right column. So the opening of the Maamer, which we explored yesterday, was the concept of the word Tcheles, which is associated with the word Tichla, which is associated with the word Vayichulu Hashamayim, which is associated with, of course, not associated, but it's the strand of turquoise, purplish, bluish, indigo color of wool, with which we dye one strand in each of the 4 corners of one's talis cotton or talis gadol. And the famous Gemara, Amar Reb Meir, why do we wear tcheles? Tcheles doimel yam, right? Looks like the ocean, the sea. V'yam doimel rakia, looks like the sky. And it looks like the kisei hakavod, doimel kisei hakavod. Now you hear this growing up. What does it really mean? Could have said tcheles doimel kisei hakavod. What does it help me? Yam, rakia. Yeah. Chazal knew what tcheles looks like. We also imagine we know, or if you actually know what tcheles is on one level or another. Tcheles, and tell me, what does the kisei hakavod look like? It looks blue? Exactly. Because the tcheles doimel kisei hakavod. Ich glaub ze sei wie auf der Wort. I'm anyway trusting you what kisei hakavod looks like. And then you have to go to Yam, you have to go to Rakia, you have to go to kisei hakavod. So this is also part of the explanation of this Maamer. It's really a very profound idea. And the beginning of the idea is that the Tcheles represents the Bitul. As he says, everything in fire, when the flame is burning, there's the blue fire, the blue flame, and there's the white flame. There's Nahira Tichla and Nahira Chivra. The blue flame is the flame that encounters the wick. It struggles with the wick, meaning it consumes the wick, and hence its color is tarnished or affected or defined by the substance that it consumes, in this case the psilu. That's the Nahira Tichla. It consumes it, and in that consumption it assumes that unique color. Where the flame above the wick is Ertzach, Nahira Chivra, it's light. He calls it Mara Ha'esh Be'etzem, the essential color of the fire. Spiritually, he says there's 2 states of Bitul. There's the Bitul Hayesh, there's the Bitul Be'etzem. Bitul Be'etzem he defines as the Bitul in the world of Atzilus till Malchus, which is a world of unity. Bitul Hayesh is from Malchus to Atzilus, which consumes and elevates Briya Yitzira Asiyah, and because it's Einoi Minoi, it's Min B'She'einoi Minoi versus Min B'Minoi. Bitul Min B'Minoi is not really Bitul, which is why Rabbi Yehuda holds there's no Bitul. And we explained that even the Chachamim really hold it's no Bitul. It's just the Isra and Heter makes it Min B'Shein and Mina, the Chiddush of the Ram. Right? So Min B'Mina is not really Bitul. Why? Because we're Lechatchila, we're from the same family. We're not Mevatel each other. We actually embolden each other, we help each other. And Min B'Shein and Mina, that's where there's resistance. And that's where the majority wins. Because there's resistance. We're opposites. Who's going to win? Min b'she'enei minei. Who's going to win? Achir rabim lahatis. Or at least you need 60. Bitul b'shishim. Sometimes you need meya. Sometimes you need masayim. Sometimes you need 200. Orla, you need 200. Truma, you need 100. There's bitul be'elef. There's a concept called bitul be'revava. 1 in 10,000. It's min b'she'enei minei. 2 opposites. The fire wins, but because it's min b'she'enei minei, there's a struggle. because you're being mevatel something. It is a yesh that you're being mevatel. It's einay minay, min b'sheinay minay. It's a different experience. Was schmeichelst du? There's two types of marriages, right? There's min b'minay and there's min b'sheinay minay. Min b'sheinay minay is min b'sheinay minay. You say it's not the same min. And min b'minay is, it's the same min. It's a whole different experience. Now you're looking at me, is there ever a marriage min b'minay? No, not quite. But you could turn min b'sheinay minay into min b'minay. Sometimes you could make min b'sheinay minay into min b'minay. But that's the concept. So it's two types of bitul ayesh and bitul batza. That's why Tchelis is doimel lekisei hakavod. What's kisei hakavod? He says this in the Maamer before the beer. It's interesting that kisei. What's a kisei? When you look at a chair, it invites you to sit on it, and the chair surrenders itself to the one who sits on it. The kisei is Bitul legabe the yoshev. We say hashamayim kisi va'aretz hadoim ragloi. The kisei is not the person, but the kisei makes itself into a keli for the person. Tcheles doime lekisei hakavod. It's doime lekisei hakavod, because the idea of tcheles is the bitul of the yesh, the blue fire. The blue fire which consumes the psila and allows the yesh to become aligned with its source. That's the concept of kisei hakavod.
It's the same idea as Avos Haven and Merkava.
Yeah. And that's why the Gemara has to go through all the stages, Yam, Rakia, Kisei hakavod, because you don't just go up to that state. You first look at the ocean, and then from the ocean you could look up to the heaven. It's not the Gemara is trying to tell you what blue looks like. We know what blue looks like. It's trying to explain to you the process of growth. You look at the Yam. The Yam is already a deeper world. And then from the Yam you could look at the Rakia. It's already a deeper world. And then from there you could come to the Kisei hakavod. But because you're dealing with a yesh, it's a process of transcending the self-contained ego and aligning yourself that you could become like a Kisei hakavod, that you become a throne where the kavod Hashem can dwell. So that's all the blue fire that's represented by the Tchelis.
Life, the work is that to turn the mean to the fire should turn the Einamina into the fire.
That's what makes it blue, because it's min b'sheinay minay. It's the encounter,
Marriage is not like this. The avoid of the Jew is the Misha Einamina to change it. Every struggle to burn the light, to burn the...
No.
To make them blue light.
A marriage is like that. The Gemara says in Soita, Darash Rabbi Akiva, Ish v'ish zachu, Shechina shruya beinayim, because Ish is Eish Yud, Ish is Eish Hey, it's two fires. And the Yud and the Hey together,
It's not like a fire and a lock, or a fire and a...
sometimes. Depends on the marriage. Sometimes it's a fire and a log.
Yeah.
Usually it's a fire and a log.
The Gemara
Yeah.
says by which time of the day.
She's the fire and he's the log. Yeah.
By what-
And sometimes it's a very thick log. And she tries for 30 years to ignite it. She puts in kerosene and oil and gasoline and newspapers and tissues and twigs.
This
It's
is
a healthy type of
this
bunkers.
isn't Tuesday morning. That's the fight of the women.
The Gemara says that she hit
Oh,
him
I'm
with
talking to men. Okay.
The Gemara says that by one of the Tanaim that his wife hit him with a line and that the cut was
The Balaturim says. Balaturim says in Bereshis, Hashem asks Adam, why did you eat from the tree? Hamina eitza shetzivisicha lebilti acham menu achalto. So Adam, like a very good Jewish husband, says, Ha'isha asher nasata imodi. You gave me a wife. He nosna li min ha'etz va'oichel. She gave me from the tree and I ate. As the Balaturim, we know what she gave him. He could have said, my wife gave me va'oichel. He nosna li min ha'etz. So the Balaturim says, you know what nosna li min ha'etz means? Adam said to Chava, I'm not eating. So she took an eitz The Marangegeben, she gave him Makas Retzach. Chava beat him. Balaturim, you could look it up. Chava Poshet beat up Adam Marish. Huh? Well, that's why you took martial arts, no? Adam should have also. He nosed the limina eights. She pushed it with the eights. She got clapped. I had to eat. I wanted to live. I had to eat. That's what the Balaturim says. Huh?
Adam Rishon was the first Mukasates.
Huh?
He was the first Mukasate.
He was a Mukasates. V'zehu, this is the Pshat, V'zehu Inyan Hatcheles Yeshva. Here we come to a whole new interpretation of what the Meraglim said. The Meraglim said, this is a whole different mahalach than what we learned earlier in Maamer. You know what the problem with Eretz Yisrael is? It's Eretz Oicheles. Here the word again is Oicheles. Tcheles, Tichla. It eats up. It's a land that eats up its inhabitants. Why? That's what Bitul is. The fire eats up the wick. The fire consumes the oil or whatever substance you're putting into the fire. This is a land of Bitul. It's going to eat up everybody. Rak. Shamiraglim amru zel lashon hara. The Meraglim said this as slander. Ki Meraglim shakranim hayu. It's a lashon Masechta Sota. Meraglim shakranim hayu. Meraglim were liars. Aval be'emes zehu l'shvach. But really, Eretz Hatcheles Yeshva is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. Why? They tained that Bitul is the worst thing that can happen to you. It kills you. It exterminates you. It eats you up. Eretz Hatcheles Yeshva. This is the Nahira Tichla. It's the fire that wants to burn you, wants to destroy you. Why would you want to go into a place and an environment that wants you dead? It wants you to seize. It's like a fire. It wants to kill you. A fire doesn't want you. A fire wants to disintegrate you and destroy you. That's what Bitul means. What's translation of Bitul? Nullification. You're going to be nullified. You're going to be eaten up. It's a starke taina. The Balatanya says, but it was a sheker. Why is it a sheker? Ki va'atem hadveikim ba'Hashem chuli. Because the pasuk says in Veschan, and you cleave to va'atem hadveikim ba'Hashem alakeichem chayim kolchem hayom. You cleave to God, you're alive today. As the Zohar explains in Bereshis, the meaning of this pasuk, which explains to you why the which explains to us why the Meraglim was saying untrue. And in the brackets he quotes the Zohar. This is a quote from this Zohar in Parshas Bereshis. Tochazi. Vav tovchav. V'tochazi. Come and see. This is a very common expression in Zohar. In Gemara you have Tov Shin, which is Toshma. And in Zohar it's Tochazi. Come and see. Tochazi.
About stuff that you can't see.
Ah?
And it's talking about stuff that you can't really see.
Yeah. Tochazi. Afal gav, even though the Ohr Chaim. I'm going to translate in English. It's Aramaic words. Afal gav, even though the Ohr Chaim tichla uchma. Even though the nature of this fire, which is blue and black. Remember, in fire itself, you have tichla is blue and uchma. Uchma in Aramaic is dark or black, shachar. Even though this bluish, blackish fire, its nature is lisheitza'a. Lisheitza'a means to destroy. Kol madi is dabik beitachtoi. Whatever gets under it, like you say, you get under his skin, you don't come out. You get under him, you don't come out. The nature of this blue-black fire is whatever gets under it doesn't come out. You put your finger in the fire, don't expect to have a finger back. It destroys everything. Nonetheless, so you would think, when you go into fire, you die. That's the story of fire physically, spiritually too. Nonetheless, Yisrael, the Jewish people, mizdabken beitachta. They connect to him. To Hashem, under him, v'kaiman b'kiyuma, and their existence endures. Hadud, this is what the pasuk says. V'atem adveikim b'Hashem alakeichem chayim kol chemaya. The two halves of the psukim is like a question with an answer, a tmiya with a yish. Even though atem adveikim b'Hashem alakeichem, so you would think Hashem alakeicha ish oichla. God is fire. You want to connect the fire, but there's nothing left. That's the point. Eretz Hatcheles Yeshva. It's the land of God. God is fire. You're not going to have a world survive. No, Chayim Kol Chamaya. You will be alive. Why? Peter, she explains as a Inyan the Ohr Chaim. When the Zohar says the nature of fire is to destroy Zel al Derech Shamar Razal. It's like the Gemara says in Sanhedrin that the Malachim were complaining. They kept on criticizing Hashem for creating man. He said it's a mistake. What are you doing? And he wouldn't stop. They wouldn't stop telling him that you don't create the world. Every group that he created, don't create. So the Gemara says, Hashem, so to speak, stretched out his little pinky among them, and they became consumed. This is what the Meraglim said. Shehi Eretz Hatcheles Yeshva. This is the land of Hashem. Eretz Yisrael is a land that will eat up. It will burn. Eish Oichla. It's a consuming fire. It will burn its inhabitants. Loimar. They were saying, Shayidei Bitul. Through Bitul, Yizbatlu Mitziyusam Lagamri. Their entire identity will be obliterated, exterminated, and decimated, gone. Nada, nothing left. Inyan Hatcheles from Canal. You know why? Because in the presence of God, there's nobody left. So once he puts his finger in, you're burnt. You want to go and touch the store, go and touch the store, but there won't be anything left of you. Eretz Hatcheles Yeshva. This is the time of the miracle.
Where does it say Hatcheles boy? Where does it say the Hatcheles?
It's a Gemara in Sanhedrin. Yeah. Yes, ask us.
We were saying days ago that it seems prepared that they were at a much higher level and they didn't want to descend. And now we're saying almost like it seems like we're saying the opposite. That they were afraid of going to a higher level, which is what they would see as Bitul be'etzem. They didn't want to go.
You want to know how to reconcile this Maamer with the previous Maamer? But the Meraglim were on such a lofty level, and here not. It's a good question, but we have to for that question, we have to wait a little bit to first understand well the concept. Let's hear what the Meraglim are saying, and tell me if you empathize with them. Okay? The Meraglim are basically, on this, according to this interpretation, saying something not just fascinating, but something that some of us hear all the time from people. To put it in simple English, religion destroys identity. Yiddishkeit obliterates individuality. If you want to live a life of self-abnegation, go to God. If you want to live a life of self-actualization, self-expression, self-creativity, then move away. In fact, there's probably thousands upon thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, or maybe even larger numbers of young men and women, or older men and women, who see it exactly that way. The choice between Judaism and secularism, as I've heard probably from hundreds of people, is that choice. A choice between losing myself, between surrendering myself, to what? To community, to religion, to God, to my Rosh Yeshiva, to my Rebbe, to my family, to my wife, to my Shvika, to my Kehillah, to my Shulchan Aruch, to Shabbos, Yom Tov, Krishma, Tefillah, Lulav, Sukkot, Chanukah, Hadassah, Chazanish, Reb Chaim Noah, Mayim Shalonu, Gebrok, Tzmatzah Shmura, and Baruch Hashem for everything, cutting nails, this direction, that direction, tying left shoe, right shoe, even controlling what I do in the bathroom, without getting too specific. But everything is controlled. How I marry, who I marry, when I marry, what I marry, what I do, where I look, how I look, when I touch, everything. What I eat, how I eat, etc. There's no self. There's no self. There's no me, I want to choose. And my whole life I'm told, wer bist du? What were you told in Yiddish? Vergessen. Okay, I'm glad you forgot. Wer meinst du bist du? Suddenly you became among them, and then this person grows up and he says, I want to be I. That's the only thing I know. I only know me. I don't know anybody else. This is a very profound sentiment, a very profound feeling. And according to this Maamer, the first ones to articulate it were the Meraglim. They said it in 3 sophisticated words. Eretz Oicheles Yeshva. You could follow God, it's not a problem. You'll go into the Holy Land, you'll do everything as they said. It's His land. But just know it's a land where nobody remains intact. They become zombies. They become robots. You talk to people, they don't think, they don't feel. They're not independent. They're not personalities. Their mind is gone. Their heart is gone. Their individuality. There's no room for individuality. How could there be room for individuality when you're told 24 hours what to say, what to think, what to feel, what to look like, how to dress, what to eat, everything? There's no individual left. Anybody relates to this?
Yes.
You want to explain how you relate to it?
I can't explain it because I'm not left.
You say there's nobody left to explain.
Right, so my son got a list what he's allowed to wear in campus summer.
Okay.
Like,
And how long did that list go for?
It's like,
Lying with the Golos. Can he print it? Was there enough paper to print it out?
right. No.
Right. So this is a very, and it expresses itself in many different ways, but the concept is the same. I don't want to be a robot. I want to choose, and for that, the Meraglim, and this is what the Meraglim said in 3 words: Oicheles Yoshva. You'll go in, but it just eats it up. You're going into fire. What happens when the fire is there's nothing left. There's just fire. And remember, the fire also is going to be destroyed. So the fire always needs somebody to eat up. So somebody once told me, religion looks for people. It needs people. If not, there's no fire.
No fuel.
You need the fuel. You need adherence. You need followers. You need the bleachers in order to build the mamlocha, to build the empire.
But what would happen to go in Eretz Yisrael? They were from in the Midbar also. So I mean, they were already religious. They were already being nechal. So what was it specifically an issue of not going to Eretz Yisrael to be religious?
It's has so much more laws. Half and half of the stuff.
You have to do things in Israel.
You had patience.
You have to get a job.
So why would they
Work for you.
Huh?
Why would they shakura?
So you want to know, you say the Meraglim were right. 100% they were right. Right? 100% they were right. You want to even know why they're wrong. Why is he saying Lashon Hara, Shakranim? This is why it's such an important discussion, this. Because this is what he's conveying. He's articulating here the elephant in the room. Not only in this room, at least in this room, we talk about the elephant in the room. In many places they don't speak about the elephant in the room. But this is the elephant in the room. And sometimes it's an unsaid feeling, it's an unspoken sentiment, but it's there. Not by everybody, but a very, very large amount of people who struggle with this. And they always see it as a choice between self-actualization or divine will.
Isn't that the definition of all Malchus?
Very good. Very good. You would have been a good advocate for the Meraglim, Rabbi Isaac.
Can you repeat that?
He says, isn't that the definition of the words Kabbalas Oil Malchus Shemayim? Accepting the yoke of the kingdom of heaven. What's a yoke? You know what a yoke is? You ever saw a bull plowing with a yoke? You take a yoke, you put it on the bull. The bull says, no, I want to go to century 21. I don't want to plow. Ich hätte nicht gebeten. The bull says, I don't want hay. I want black and whites for breakfast. I want, what are you drinking over there?
That's Ohr Chaim, not Ohr Chaim.
Huh?
To the bull.
Oil Malchus. You said, no, you take a yoke, you put it on the bull, and you say, this is your place. You take the horse and you whip it. So Kabbalas Oil Malchus Shemayim means accepting a yoke of a king. That's what it means.
It's channeling the energy of the animal to a purpose. Otherwise,
Okay. Is that semantics or it's an experience?
No, it's
You're speaking from experience or words?
you have to go through the process. That's real life.
It's all the creation of Shlach. Shlach created all these things.
Okay, so you go back to the Bible. What does it say in the Bible? Do whatever you want, huh? I'm God who took you out of Egypt,
Have a good day.
and therefore I want you to chill out, do whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want, with whomever you want. Those are my commandments. Now go move on. Shulchan Aruch explains Torah. Shabbat. What do you think Shulchan Aruch is? There's no din in Shulchan Aruch that can't be traced back.
All these how-tos come from Shulchan Aruch.
Okay. Because the Torah Shabbat was written very briefly, very concisely. But all Taryag mitzvahs are in Chumash. Tefillin is in Chumash, Krishma is in Chumash, Mezuzah is in Chumash, Shabbos is in Chumash, Yom Tov is in Chumash, Davening is in Chumash, Kashrus, Nevelis, Treifus, Nideh, Taras HaMishpacha, this is all in Chumash. Like everything in Chumash, it's very brief, it's very concise, it's very cryptic.
How to dress and how to eat.
How to dress is not in Chumash, that's true. But what you're talking about, how to dress, is not in Shulchan Aruch either. Your Rebbe said that what? Vayelech Moshe. No, how did he go? Okay.
It's a question for you.
Maybe it was a casket. I don't know. Maybe it was a Barcelino. I'm not sure.
The source of the trauma comes from Shulchan Aruch.
The source of the trauma comes from Shulchan Aruch. Okay. So he wants to know, why did you become a Baal Tshuva?
It's quite the opposite.
That's where it comes down to. All the answers, all the questions are Shulchan Aruch. You gotta follow Shulchan Aruch. Shkir and the nets and all that.
No, Shkiyah with the nets is not Shulchan Aruch. It says B'shach b'chov kumecha. That's a pasuk in Chumash. The explanation of b'kumecha is in Mishnayos. You're right, because nothing in Chumash is clear. It says don't do malacha on Shabbos. What's malacha? I don't know. It says ukshartam la'ois al yadecha. What exactly do I tie on my hand? Potato peels? Uchsaftam al mezuzah. So what do I take a pen and I go to my door and I write a few verses? Every loisavashal gdiba chalev imay. What does that mean? I could read it b'chelev. Every pasuk needs explanation. So the Rambam says Torah b'firusha nitna. Torah Shabbat was given with commentary. Without it, it doesn't make sense. But Torah Shabbat is not a new thing. It's a pirush of Torah Shabbat. It's a chiddush to what I'm saying. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. No problem. No problem. But so this is the time of the Mirang. This is the time, the Eretz Hatcheles Yeshua. So now this is the whole Hemshech. When you speak about Bitul, the word Bitul is what they felt horrible about. When they heard the word Bitul, they felt trauma. In your words, they felt trauma. Why? That's the end of me. And that's very painful. It's painful when you have something or somebody who will destroy you. It's a very painful thing. Just like physically we don't want to die. Emotionally we don't want to die. Psychologically we don't want to die. Spiritually we don't want to die. Physically you'll do anything to survive. Anything in order to hold on to your life. People go through and endure tremendous suffering. Therapies and surgeries, etc., etc. In order to live. Emotionally I don't want to die. I want to hold on to me. And the Meraglim said, the blueprint of Torah, the blueprint of Yiddishkeit, is one that demands unconditional, absolute surrender of self. Hashem, and they have a quote, Hashem Elokecha, Eish Oich Lahu. And when you go into the fire, all that's left is ashes. That's what's left. That's what's going to be left of you. Emotionally, that's what's going to be left of you. Don't expect creativity. Don't expect personality. Don't expect joy. Expect people who are basically robotic. They don't think too much. They don't feel. Even when they smile, it's a concocted smile because it's Simchas Torah and you have to smile. Or it's Purim.
It's all Baruch Hashem.
Huh?
It's all Baruch Hashem. How you doing? Baruch, how you feeling, Baruch Hashem?
I'm not sure we're supposed to stop the shuir at this point. Are we? What a quagmire. So the Baal HaTanya calls them shakranim. This is a lie. Very strong words. He doesn't say they made a mistake. He says they lied. Why does he use such strong words? He uses such strong words because the point the Baal HaTanya wants to make here is that this is an absolute distortion of everything that Judaism represents and everything that Eretz Yisrael represents. And this has to be ingrained in somebody's identity to be able to understand that if Bitul is described as self-destruction, it's a lie. He has no other words for it. It's a lie. It's the translation. Bitul means Bitul. In Halacha, what does Bitul mean? Nullification. But the truth is, and this is what's going to emerge here fascinatingly, that this whole Maamer coincides with Halacha. Just like we learned min b'mina min b'sheina mina, what is the definition of Bitul in Halacha? What does Bitul mean? If I pour milk into meat, what happens to that milk? How are you allowed to drink the milk? What happens to that milk? So this is not a pashut thing. This is a big shakla b'tarya in Halacha. If you have an egg, and one non-kosher egg, it comes from a treif chicken, gets mixed in with 1,000 eggs, it's Bitul. It's min b'mina, it's the same type, but it's Bitul. Because la halacha we say min b'minei batal, not like Rabbi Yehuda. At least b'shishim, b'roiv, b'shishim, but it's batal. What happens to that egg? And there's a big question in halacha. I have 1,000 eggs. I know one is treif. Am I allowed to eat all 1,000 eggs, or do I have to take out one egg? No, it's not so partial. It's a big shaila. What does it have to do with? There's two ways of defining Bitul and halacha. One way is it's assimilated, it's overwhelmed, it's irrelevant. To give an example, we have a board meeting, we have a company, or we have a shul, and on the board sit 39 people, Rahman al-Islam, but if you have so many people, but let's say you have 39 people, okay, and one person disagrees. It's irrelevant. Okay, he disagrees. He says, no, you're going to destroy this shul. Okay, but 38 people disagree. So you don't look at him. You can't give him power. Why? Because he's overwhelmed. He's overwhelmed. Imagine you have a room and everybody is hollering and screaming. The music is on very, very loud. And there's one person speaking. He's speaking, but it's irrelevant. He's disregarded. That's one way of learning Bitul.
Unless he's the CEO.
Unless he's the CEO. But when you're one egg and 1,000 eggs, you're not the CEO. That's the point. That's the point of Bitul. You're not the CEO. Yeah. So the refugee comes, the Jew comes from across the Atlantic Ocean. He comes to Ellis Island, right? Everybody here looks at religion as a joke, as a mockery. So what do you want from him? He's told that if he doesn't come Shabbos to work, he shouldn't come Sunday and Monday and Tuesday, as hundreds of thousands of Jews were told. So what do you want from him? Everybody laughs. There's only public schools, so the kid is one kid that comes with a doggy bag. What do you want from the kid? He feels irrelevant. He feels stupid. He feels like a real minority. So what do? You melt. You give in. You surrender. You shed your layers. There's no room for resistance anymore. Unless you're in action, and then you'll be thrown out anyway. You'll be sent back over the Atlantic. So the concept of Bitul on one level is you're simply overwhelmed by the majority, and therefore we don't look at you. But you still remain treif. The egg still remains treif, and then the halacha would be you have to throw out one egg. Because you can't eat all the eggs, because one has to be treif. But the Rosh says that's not pshat and Bitul. Pshat and Bitul is ha'isur nepach liyas k'moy heter. Pshat of Bitul is that the isur is transformed. As a result of entering into that domain, it assumes the identity of the domain. It's a whole different concept. Ha'isur nepach liyas k'moy heter. This translation, and therefore you can eat every egg. And therefore you can eat every egg. That's the Chiddush. You have the same question in Sanhedrin. You have 71 members of Sanhedrin. Okay? 50, what's half? So you have 30...
35 and a half.
Okay. So you have, let's say, just making something. You have 40 who say one thing. And then you have the other 31 who disagree. And then they give out a psak din. You follow the majority. But who gave the psak din? It's negei la halacha. Was this psak din made by 71 or was this psak din made by 40? Do you say you disregard the view of the 31? Or you say no, one's Bezdin Paskins and Torah says, Achnei Rabim La'atos. It becomes everybody's psak, even the minority. They all become part of that psak.
Everybody can sign.
Everybody could sign. Not because they're being dishonest, because that's the psak HaTorah, Achnei Rabim La'atos. When Rabbi Yeshua disagreed with Rabbi Gamliel didn't tell Rabbi Yeshua about Yom Kippur. We learned in Rosh Hashanah Chafei. He didn't tell Rabbi Yeshua, just be quiet. He said, I want you to be Mechala Yom Kippur. I want you to come, and I want you to come with your stick and with your money. In other words, what if to come? Come yourself! Even your stick, which is outside of you, and even your money, which you don't, it's not even for your body, it's completely outside of you, even that should come with Yavna. I want all of you to come to Yavna. What do you mean I want all of you? Full participation. I want transformation. It's a different type of Bitul. Different level of Bitul. So there's two very different interpretations of Bitul. One definition of Bitul is nullification. And one definition of Bitul is you assume the identity. You assume the identity of the reality that you're bottled to. So now here comes the question. Whose identity am I assuming? If I go into a marriage and you say you have to be mevatel yourself in this marriage. Okay? So what's Bitul mean? Bitul means you just stay quiet for the rest of your life. That's one level of Bitul. You let somebody else wear the pants. Or Bitul means no. You assume the identity of the other one, and in a way that's worse. Because now does Mamish know me? Now I become you. You become a new Metzias. That I'm really afraid of. But why should you become me? Why should I become you?
No, it's not one.
There's a third
This is a third.
Okay. So that's what we have to understand. That's what we have to understand. That's what we have to understand. So the truth is that the Meraglim's mistake was that they misunderstood a few things. First of all, you have to redefine what God is. And therefore you have to redefine what Judaism is. So you have to redefine what Eretz Yisrael is. So you have to redefine what Torah and mitzvahs are. You have to redefine what a human being is. You have to redefine what God is. You have to redefine what a human being is. And then finally you have to redefine what Bitul is. When you could redefine all these things, you could say, Meraglim shakranim hayu. Shakranim in the sense, they had wrong definitions. Everything was wrongly defined. Bitul was wrongly defined, so Eretz Yisrael was wrongly defined. So God was wrongly defined, so Torah was wrongly defined. And they themselves were wrongly defined. When you could redefine all of this, you have a new definition. Okay.
But this was not a holy sin. That's shakranim.
Yeah, this is
Not
different.
a holy sin.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.